Hello and good morning to all of you, and welcome back to another episode of Morning Quest, one that is going to stay very focused on Nintendo, because I think in the last week, since we all last hung out, they have completely torn the roof off of gaming, primarily with a lot of the stuff they've announced about the Nintendo Switch 2, but there were also updates to the Nintendo Switch, and a lot of its success that's definitely worth covering as well. Definitely just want to make some Lodge announcements before we move into everything. We originally were going to do the Lodge anniversary this Sunday. I am pushing that back a week or two for good reasons you will see. Hey, shout out to SL White over on Twitch, who just came in with the sub, says good morning. What's up, SL White? And what's up, Lance? Both of you coming in hot. Let's put the chat on the screen. Oh, it doesn't look like you guys are coming through. That's fine. We'll fix it. Anyway. So the Lodge anniversary stream has just been temporarily pushed back for like a week or two. You'll see why. Definitely a lot of exciting stuff to get through. Also, new Landy Lodge podcast coming in, missing link discussion coming in. Just want to give you guys those updates. But without further ado, today's poised to be a shorter episode. What's up, Luz? Let's talk. And you know what? I think let me blow this up a little bit so you guys could see it a little better. There we go. A little live production. So, Nintendo very quietly announced... Oh, 1 second. You guys aren't coming in the chat, so I'm just going to keep it off screen for the episode. But no worries. I see you. I'll be here to reply. Anyway, so let's read this out, because this is, in my opinion, some of the biggest news the gaming market could have gotten, and it's made me feel very bullish on Nintendo. Wait, what's going on with the podcast and stuff, Landy? Nothing that you need to worry about, Luz. Yes, missing link discussions en route. Now, let's get into this tweet. This is Furukawa. At today's corporate management policy briefing, we announced that Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. They still won't give us the name. Will be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch Online will be available on the successor to Nintendo Switch as well. We all knew that. Further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date. Yeah, I've got to say, this is cool stuff, because I'm gonna be honest, I did not expect them to go down that road. I did not expect the Nintendo Switch 2 to end up being backwards compatible. I thought for sure they were going to basically try and charge everybody a second time for Mario Kart and Smash Brothers and stuff like that. Now, don't get me wrong, I think we're poised to see like a 4K upscale of those games on the Switch 2, right? I'm sure you're going to get your Breath of the Wild 4K and stuff like that. But the fact that the Switch 2 is going to be backwards compatible has a lot of huge implications. Let's switch this up for a second. Pull it back here. Here's the thing, guys. So the Nintendo Switch 2, or the Super Nintendo Switch, which I think would be a better name, but that's just my stupid opinion. It being backwards compatible means one thing. These launch titles are about to be crazy. Because if they weren't going to make the Switch 2 backwards compatible, there was a very easy way to get people to have to buy a Switch 2, right? If suddenly the latest Smash Brothers or Mario Kart could only be played on one console as opposed to two. So what this signals to me is that Nintendo has such a good launch catalog ready to go that it won't matter that the Switch is backwards compatible. Because, look, backwards compatibility isn't anything new for Nintendo, but the last time they did it, it didn't go too well for them. But let's talk about a couple of times where they did do it. First things first, by the way, Theo Wayne, what's going up over on Twitter? Let's talk about the Wii, which before the Switch was Nintendo's best-selling console of all time. It was backwards compatible with the GameCube. Now, the GameCube, here's the funny thing. The GameCube technically was not a success. Nintendo did not sell the units they were looking to sell with the GameCube. They did not sell the amount of consoles they were looking to sell with the GameCube. So making it backwards compatible was an easier decision in that, right? Because it still it still promoted the sale of GameCube software. But then they did it again with the Wii U to the Wii. Now that time it was a resounding failure because the Wii was this huge success. And then when the Wii U launched, it was completely lacking of any launch titles. Completely lacking. Nintendo's had a lot of success launching consoles with Zelda games, right? Wii U was compared to the Wii, which had Skyward Sword, compared to the GameCube, which had Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, compared to Ocarina of Time, compared to N64, which had Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. When we look at the Wii U, it doesn't have any exclusive console Zelda. Not one. So, I don't think a console Zelda will be ready at launch. Tears of the Kingdom just arrived. But I guarantee you Nintendo has learned from the past. And with the Switch and Switch 2 being backwards compatible, they're probably working on the next main Zelda title right now. Now again, if you're going to have this backwards compatibility, that means you're probably going to launch with games that you could only have on the Switch 2 that will push people into buying a Switch 2, as opposed to just sitting on their Switch. Now, we've discussed this in previous episodes. We've theorized that a new Animal Crossing could be a launch title, that they could do things like Smash Brothers 4K, and maybe even add a couple characters, just to get people in. They could do that with Mario Kart. They could do that with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And they've even talked about how there was, not a leak, but an insider said that they've been testing Final Fantasy VII Remake on the Switch 2. Now imagine FF7 Remake is a launch title for the Switch 2. These are the kind of things that we're poised to see, simply because, again, Nintendo knows the risk. Again, we're not talking from a consumer perspective. We're talking from a business perspective. They know the risk of making this console backwards compatible, and there's no way they're doing it without a plan in place to have a launch catalog to get people involved on day one. For instance, a new Mario 3D platformer. Again, we've gotten a lot of Mario games, but Mario Odyssey came out 7 years ago, 7 years ago, and that's the last mainline 3D platforming Mario game that we've gotten. So I would expect that maybe at this next launch, we could have the next big Mario platformer, which I'm sure a lot of us are starving for. What up, Nacht Flugel? Says 3D Mario, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a strong hypothesis. High Five Ghost is here. What is up, dude? Will's Word is here as well. Theo Wayne says, out of the emulators and system I have, I'm playing OC games better than PS2. I said it. How dare you? PS2 is the GOAT. The greatest of all time. But yeah, so that kind of is huge news. Again, it's good to know that all my Switch games that you see will be playable on the new Switch console. But again, I think what this signals is they have launch titles ready to go. And if they're not, they don't have titles ready for launch, they have titles ready for the first year. I really think, because this was an issue for the Switch. You got to remember that. The Switch launched with Breath of the Wild, and that led a lot of people like me to be day one buyers. But a Zelda game is not going to be day one this time. So it'll be interesting to see what they launch with. But I guarantee you, at the end of the Switch successor's first year, they're going to have a beefy first-party catalog. If you recall, with the Nintendo Switch, the first year it was on the market, it was incredibly lacking with software. Incredibly lacking. It sold anyway because they had the strength of Zelda, but if they don't have it this time around, they're going to need a new strategy. Now, let's cover a little bit of extra news right here. This one coming to us from Paul Gale, which again, all these links are in the description if you guys are looking for them. The Nintendo Switch successor will indeed be backwards compatible. Got that. Switch Online. Oh, well, the Switch models. Okay, we actually already covered all of this. So let's switch up to another thing. Keeping it Nintendo-based. Here's why I believe, 100%, why it's going to be, why it is backwards compatible. So check it out. Switch sets all-time software record for Nintendo. 146 million hardware sales, 1.3 billion software sales. Guys, these numbers are absolutely insane. So first of all, the Switch has officially passed the Wii. It's past the Nintendo DS. And I actually think when it's all said and done, the Nintendo Switch will pass the PlayStation 2 as the greatest selling console of all time. Actually, yes. I know the Nintendo DS is very close, and I may have my numbers wrong. I think the DS may be above the Nintendo Switch. But as far as consoles go, the Nintendo Switch is now Nintendo's best-selling console of all time. Now, here's why I think backwards compatibility is so huge for Nintendo and is the right move. So, look, Nintendo sold 146 million Switches. Here's the thing, though. They don't make any money when they sell a console. Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, when they sell you a console and put it in your home, they more than likely are taking a loss. So, for instance, Nintendo sells you this Switch for $300. It probably cost them $350, $400 to make. But that's because these companies, they don't bank on making their money on hardware. They bank on making their money on software. So again, Nintendo gets the Switch into your home, and then the games that they sell you are how they turn their profit. Now, keeping that in mind, 1.3 billion units of software. That is ridiculous. But here's the thing. If the Switch 2 is backwards compatible, they can keep selling Switch software, right? So for instance, I'm going to buy my Switch 2, but if a smaller scale game comes to the Switch, I'll buy it for the Switch. The Nintendo Switch is only going to continue to sell software units even into the Switch 2's life cycle. That's what I think is the genius move about all of this. Is again, even though you have the Switch 2 on the market and Switch 2 games, because of the backwards compatibility, you can continue to sell tons of software, even on the new console. And then let's keep something else in mind, and Nintendo deserves a lot of credit for this. The Nintendo Switch has been an absolute blessing for indie gaming. An absolute blessing for indie gaming. And a lot of these indie developers, in fact, I'll say most of them, 95% of indie developers are not going to have the in-house technology to create a game that can utilize the specs of the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, the Nintendo Switch is not a very powerful system, but that was actually ended up being to the benefit of some of these indie developers because, again, it created, I guess you could say, a little bit more of a level playing field on the Nintendo Switch catalog. But now that the Switch 2 is coming along, that doesn't necessarily mean all these indie developers are suddenly going to create games that can utilize all the specs of the Switch 2. However, that's not the case for the Switch 1. So I do think the indie market, even with the Switch 2 around, will still thrive on the Nintendo Switch, and loads of these software units are still going to sell. I mean, for instance, right? Let me see if I can think up a good personal example. So let's say the Switch 2 comes out in the spring. I buy a Switch 2 with the Mario launch game and maybe a Metroid launch game. But you know what, man? I never got around to playing Metroid Dread, and Metroid Prime 4 comes out in a couple months. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go buy Metroid Dread for the Nintendo Switch and play it on my Switch 2. So right there, you see how there's this pipeline where even though the Switch 2 is on the market, people will still buy software from the previous generation to play on their Switch 2. I'm trying to think of another personal example. Like, for instance, I haven't gotten Echoes of Wisdom yet. Been hooked on Metaphor, been hooked on Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and actually, shout out to Square Enix for giving me a code, I've been hooked on Romancing Saga 2. So much fun. Anyway, that's besides the point. Completely lost my train of thought. But Echoes of Wisdom, right? So maybe I don't get around to Echoes of Wisdom until the Switch 2 comes out. But you know what? I end up buying a Switch 2, but still buying Echoes of Wisdom on Switch to play on Switch 2. So again, you have this pipeline where you can still sell Nintendo Switch software even with a new console on the market. Again, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'd be willing to bet that helped them during the GameCube Wii era. Because, yeah, the Nintendo Wii came out, but due to its backwards compatibility, people who either didn't have a GameCube and bought a Wii, because remember, loads of people who didn't have a GameCube ended up buying a Wii. It sold more than double. So people were able to go back and still buy GameCube software, even though Nintendo makes it impossible to buy today. And we all know that GameCube's coming to Nintendo Switch Online when it comes to Switch 2. But again, this is some of the crazy stuff, guys. Very exciting. Very, very exciting. But I think I've made my point as far as that goes. Let me see what else we got as far as Nintendo. So let's pull this up. So I'm looking, and here, actually, we'll pull it up for you guys. It is 9 million. This comes to us from Nathan Super Gamer Guy. 9 million units away from passing the PlayStation 2. 9 million units. I think they can do it. Hold on one second. Let me pull this up now that we're up to here. Perfect. Okay. So I really think at the end of the day, Nintendo has done a good job lately of servicing their primary customer. Now, Nintendo does a good job. Look, we're here at the Lodge, right? We talk about the sickos and the normies. Nintendo does a good job selling to one of those at a time, right? The thing about the Wii is it got a lot of normies in, and that made a lot of money for Nintendo. GameCube and the Wii U were for the sickos, but the sickos can't carry Nintendo to justify themselves on the market to compete with PlayStation. What they need is that sort of mass appeal that can only be achieved from things like Mario, Pokemon, Animal Crossing. So those are three of their biggest IPs. You know, why don't we throw Splatoon in there as well? Mario, Pokemon, Splatoon, Animal Crossing. I'd be willing to bet at launch 2 of those 4 will be ready to go. Now again, Nintendo's got 9 million units to catch up to the PS2. I think it does mean something to Nintendo. I think they want the Switch to be unquestionably the best-selling console of all time. I really think so, because again, you have to consider this. We're going to get a little nerdy here, but hear me out. Nintendo is on the public market, right? Which means you can buy Nintendo stock. So for companies like Nintendo to continue to grow, they have to promise growth to investors. They have to show investors that they're going to continue to grow and continue to succeed. If they're able to tout that the Nintendo Switch is the greatest selling console of all time. Now, the console market is 40 years old. If they can tout that in 40 years, they have put together the best-selling console the market has ever seen, that's going to do a lot, not just for them internally, but externally as well. It'll draw in a lot of investors. It'll draw in a lot of that, which will allow them, give them more capital to play with, and allow them to produce things, hopefully, if not at a quicker rate, at a more efficient and better rate. Crazy Comics is here. Says, hey, Landy, hope you're doing well. I am doing very, very well. Theo, I see you there on Twitter blowing up the chat. Let me see something, because the problem is, dude, from where I can see, as far away as I am from my screen, the text is too little. I cannot read it. YouTube's text comes in nice and big, which helps me there. Anyway, So Theo, if you want to come over to YouTube and type some of this stuff in, I'll be able to see and respond much better because I see you lighting it up on the Twitter chat, and I appreciate that you're in the Twitter chat. Again, guys, if you don't follow us on Twitter, please do. It's our third platform. Podcast streams there now, live streams there now. Very exciting stuff. But anyway, taking us back to the Switch of it all. What's going on, Liam? Good to have you in here, man. But getting it back to the Switch of it all. Nintendo wants it to beat the PS2. Nintendo's competitive like that. And look, the PS2, I'll say forever, I think is the best console of all time. I think it has the best catalog of all time. But the Nintendo Switch is a close second. And I think that's the lesson here, is at the end of the day, it comes down to your catalog. It doesn't matter what specs you got. Okay? I don't care how powerful the Switch 2 is, for the most part. I just want it to be more powerful than a Switch. I don't care if it's as powerful as a PS4 or a PS4 Pro or a PS5. I don't really care about that. I do want it to be more powerful, but what I want more than that is a catalog. Because again, PlayStation 2, the reason why it thrived was because it had a massive first-party catalog and a massive third-party catalog. The Switch, the reason why it thrived, has a massive first-party catalog, has a massive third-party catalog. I would hope for the same thing as far as the Nintendo Switch 2. So they reveal this and it is coming out next year. Yeah, look, we can make a safe bet that the Switch 2 will be out next year. And at the end of the day, the prospective catalog for the Switch 2 is already building. The new Pokemon Legends, right? We know to expect that. The Xenoblade remaster, which they just announced. You had that tech demo that leaked that looked like it could be a sort of Minecraft Animal Crossing type game. We know that a new Metroid is being worked on. You know, it's the prospective catalog for the Switch 2 is already building, and the system hasn't even technically been announced yet or shown off yet. Again, and I think that's a good place for Nintendo to be, where again, we can already think up a number of Switch 2 games that are being developed right now and will be ready for that system. Again, we named a few. Xenoblade, the new Metroid game, the new Metroid Prime game, Pokemon Legends, ZA, and we know that Gen 10 is also being worked on right now. So it looks like Pokemon's going to have a bang kind of release. Knockful says Switch 2 will be similar to PS4 Pro in terms of power, right? That's what insiders are reporting. I think that would be amazing. A handheld that's as powerful as a PS4 Pro, I think that would be incredible. But even if it's as powerful as a base PS4, that's good enough for me too. That's good enough for me too, because you know what, guys? The reason why Nintendo's winning is they understand at the end of the day that graphics are not the most important thing to a gamer. And it's a shame, right? Because when we look at, let's take it back to let's go all the way back to GameCube, PS2, Xbox. So much of the growth we've seen in gaming has come from the graphics and the presentation. Gameplay hasn't evolved all that much. It has. Don't get me wrong. It most certainly has. But when you compare the growth, the gap of growth between gameplay and graphics over the last 10, 15 years, graphics have expanded this much. Gameplay's expanded this much. I personally, and I think Nintendo would be smart to do this, it is time to slow down, if not outright halt, it is time to slow down the progression of graphics, and it's time to let gameplay catch up. That's where I stand, and I think that's where Nintendo stands. Because we keep boosting up all these graphics, creating these games that have these giant file sizes where so much money and resources has to go into optimization, make sure the game runs well, make sure the game's compact enough to fit on people's consoles. All these resources have to get poured into that. Imagine for a minute, a lot of that kind of just came to a halt, or at the very least slowed down, and now all those resources and all that attention can get put into gameplay. I think that's Nintendo's angle, because look at the gap between Wii U and Switch graphics. It's about this big. But the gap between Wii U gameplay and Switch gameplay is about that big. I think Nintendo figured this out a long time ago. And that's why when it comes to the Switch 2, I don't really care about its graphical capability. What I care about is its ability to handle more advanced gameplay. And I think it's a conversation we're not having enough. Everyone's talking about, oh, this could be in 4K. Oh, this could be 100 frames per second. That's all well and good. Don't get me wrong. I like that kind of stuff. But what I'm more interested in is how do these specs improve the gameplay? Not from a frame rate point of view, not from a resolution point of view, from an actual holding the controller and pressing the buttons point of view. How does it affect gameplay? That's where I stand, and I think that's been Nintendo's angle since the Wii U crashed, for lack of a better term. Liam says a Super Smash Kart will be on the Switch too, which is Mario Kart Super Smash Bros. Game. I can see it now. I really think all they would need to do, continue doing what you're doing with Mario Kart, but like Liam said, it would be cool if you saw like a lot of first-party Nintendo characters come to Mario Kart so that it kind of just became Nintendo Kart. Like, you could still call it Mario Kart, right? Just for branding and marketing purposes. But it would be cool if you could play as Kirby, and you could, like, maybe use one of the ships from Kirby Air Ride. It'd be cool if you could play as Captain Falcon and use, like, one of the F-Zeros. It'd be cool if you could play as Star Fox and ride around in the R-Wing. This could be a tremendous way for Nintendo to market some of their lower and smaller scale IPs. So, I'm with you there, Liam. I think that would be very cool to see. Okay. Last thing we're going to touch on today. Again, keeping it Nintendo focused. We're doing a Nintendo episode. That's what we have on our plates. 1 second. I left my speaker on here. Let me turn this down. Okay. Theo, I see you're talking GameCube. I love it. I love it. Okay. So, to tap off our Nintendo talk for today, we have a launch trailer for the new Mario and Luigi game. And let's size this down now so you all can see it. Live production here at the Landy Lodge. Wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't be a Landy Lodge live stream without live production. Okay. Let's punch this in and let it... Oh, let me turn on the sound for you guys. Let's let it rip. 1080p. And you see my point too, right? It's like, and again, these are topics we talk about a lot at this, on this channel. I think it's why you guys kind of like me. But art style is so much more important than graphics, right? I look at these graphics. This could have been on the Wii U, but the art style stands out the most, not the graphics. Gotta love it. You gotta love it. Look, anytime they can rope Luigi into the adventure, it makes me a happy man. These are the kind, and I gotta hand it to Nintendo because, the Switch is on its way out in terms of being their primary console, but they are finishing rather strong. Between Mario and Luigi Brothership, Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and Super Mario Party Jamboree, they're doing a good job to continue selling software, even though the console's at the end of its life cycle. And they're so smart. They're so smart because, again, man, like, games just have to be fun. Games just have to be fun. Like, when it comes to Mario and Luigi Brothership, when it comes to Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and when it comes to Super Mario Party Jamboree, let me ask you guys, are they trying to win Game of the Year, or are they just trying to entertain you? With those games, right? Are they trying to blow the lid off the gaming world with this mind-blowing... No. They're just trying to make a fun game. And that's all there is to it, man. I genuinely believe, especially if you have the kind of name power and marketing power that Nintendo has, if you just make pressing the buttons fun, the rest will fall into place. Truly. Truly. And I think Nintendo, again, understands that. in a way that some of their competitors don't. But I don't know, guys. I gotta say, 2025 seems to be the year of Nintendo. When it comes to PlayStation, I can't really think of any 2025 games on the horizon that interest me, right? Final Fantasy had its day in the sun, launched essentially 3 mainline titles in one year. So I don't expect anything from Final Fantasy in 2025. Kingdom Hearts, crickets. Don't think we're getting KH4 in 2025. Missing Link, sure. KH4, not so much. But again, when it comes to PlayStation, there's really not a whole lot on the horizon for 2025. Xbox is completely played out. They're turning into a publisher as opposed to a developer, which is good on their part, I suppose. But at the end of the day, Nintendo is the one poised for the big year in 2025. I honestly, because I think it's weird, man, because the gaming market is crashing and it's headed for more of a crash. But Nintendo is... Look, Nintendo survived the first gaming crash about 35 years ago or so. They're going to survive again. And they're going to be all the more powerful for it. I genuinely believe at the conclusion of this next crash, Microsoft is out of the console game. Sony keeps their head above water. And Nintendo is unquestionably the king. Unquestionably the king. Okay, they're coming off their best-selling console of all time. Over 1 billion software units sold. And they have, and again, even though older IPs like Star Fox have played themselves out, unfortunately, and I pray they come back one day, the truth is Nintendo has become a master at just creating new IPs. You know, at the end of the day, Splatoon is a relatively new IP. And it's selling like crazy. They've made Animal Crossing a flagship IP. They've really done a good job with their first-party content. Because it's their leverage in the market, man. They have a first party program that none of the other developers can mimic, right? Microsoft bought up every studio under the freaking sun. They still struggle to put software out. PlayStation used to have amazing deals with all these third-party developers, but now even Square Enix is abandoning exclusivity. Nintendo is poised to take over the entire gaming market. I'm not saying from a monopolistic point of view. Again, I think Sony is still poised to be around for a long time. But I do believe when we get to the end of 2025, between the new Switch console, the new software coming out, and the fact that Nintendo is simultaneously going to be selling Switch 2 consoles and Switch consoles, Switch 2 software and Nintendo Switch software, both at once, they're going to be swimming in it. They're going to be swimming in it. Like you wouldn't believe. But anyway, we're coming up on time, so I'm going to wrap it up here. You all are amazing. Thank you so much for hanging out, everybody. You guys are the best. I love y'all. Everyone from Knock Flugel to Crazy Comics to SL White to Theo Wayne to Liam Hughes to High Five Ghost to Luz to Will to Lance to Falcone. All of you who hung out here in the chat today, hanging out with us. I know I didn't get to respond to the chat too much, and we didn't get to put you guys up on the screen today, but don't worry. We'll fix that. We got quite a weekend coming up. I've got, you know what? I'm just going to shut my mouth. I'm going to shut my mouth and let the lodge do the talking for itself. Practice, good to see you here too, man. Thank you for chilling. We're wrapping up. You guys are awesome. Listen, have a great weekend, man. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. What up, Josh Z? Again, that's important, guys. Be good to yourselves and be good to each other, man. Have a great weekend. I'll be live at some point this weekend, either playing Metaphor or Nuzlocke. May do a podcast, but we'll see. Depends how I'm feeling. That's how I do the channel these days. I really just roll with how I'm feeling. But anyway, you guys are awesome. Thank you for tuning in. Channel would be nothing without you. Love you guys. Have